Today's lesson is debating the virtues of self-driving cars. Hi, everybody. I'm Roger.
And I'm Helen.
And today we're talking about self-driving cars. And our article is in the form of a debate or a forum in which people are offering their opinions. Now, remember, last time we heard from 3 different people. It seems that 2 people were in favor of self-driving cars, but 1 person was opposed to self-driving cars.
Yes, and that person was Carlos, who was a taxi driver, and he was afraid that self-driving cars would take away his job and leave him without any way of making money. However, today we're going to be looking at the opinions of 5 people, and these people come from all walks of life. And as you will see, depending on what their background is, what kind of job they do, they'll have specific opinions about self-driving cars based on their background.
Okay, so without any further delay, let's listen to the opinions of 2 people right now. Let's see what John and Mia have to say about self-driving cars.
John, 50, insurance lawyer. From my professional point of view, self-driving cars raise interesting questions. Who's liable in the event of an accident? The car owner, the manufacturer, the software designer, the AI itself? We insurance lawyers are going to have a field day.
Mia, 22, college student. I'm not sure about self-driving cars. Privacy is a big deal for me, and I don't like the idea of a car company knowing everywhere I've been. That really gives me the creeps.
大家好，第一部分我们来介绍形容词 liable。它的意思是在法律上有责任的或是应负责的。例如 The property owner may be liable if someone gets injured there. 若有人在那里受伤，产权所有人可能要负法律责任。又或者说 Most men are liable for military service. 大多数的男人都需要服兵役。接着看到片语 In the event of 名词，它的意思是万一……或是如果发生……例如In the event of hardware failure, all company files have been backed up in the cloud. 万一硬体设备故障的话，全公司的档案都被备份在云端。又或者说 In the event of a thunderstorm, you should go inside and wait for it to pass. 若是下大雷雨，你应该进到屋内等风雨过去。再来是名词 manufacturer， 这个字的意思是制造商或是厂商。例如This company is a leading manufacturer of stuffed animals. 这间公司是填充玩偶的龙头制造商。或是 I sent my new computer back to the manufacturer because it wasn't working. 我把我的新电脑送回制造商那里，因为它无法运作。下一个介绍片语 give somebody the creeps， 表示使……毛骨悚然，或是让……心里发毛。例如Stephen King's novels give me the creeps, but both of my brothers love his books and movies. Stephen King 的小说让我感到毛骨悚然，但我的2个兄弟都很爱他的书和电影。或是 Knowing his neighbor practices witchcraft gives Ben the creeps. 得知邻居练习巫术，让 Ben 心里发毛。
John, 50, insurance lawyer. So John is 50 years old and he is a lawyer, but he's a specific type of lawyer. He's an insurance lawyer. So what is insurance? Insurance is a kind of an arrangement in which you make with a company. So you pay money to this company, and in return, the company pays you the cost of something bad that happens. So, for instance, if you become ill or your car is damaged, you can get money from this company, from this insurance company, to cover the cost of your hospital bills if you're sick, or the garage and the mechanic bills if your car is damaged and needs to be repaired. So John is an insurance lawyer, which means that he works with different types of insurance. And he says, from my professional point of view, self-driving cars raise interesting questions. So he's not just looking at things from an environmental perspective or how people make money, but it raises different problems and different issues that most people may not even think about.
Right, so he's giving this opinion from his professional point of view because he is a lawyer and he's looking at it in terms of legal terms or because it will raise certain questions in terms of the law. For example, he's got a question, who's liable in the event of an accident? Now, when you try to determine whose fault something is, you ask this question, who's liable? Who's responsible if there's an accident? Who do you blame if there is an accident or in the event of an accident? In the event of just means just in case or if there is this situation. For example, in the event of rain, we're not going to go hiking on Yangmingshan tomorrow. If it rains, we're not going to go hiking. It's going to be too rainy. The trails will be muddy. You get the idea. So yeah, it's a good question here. If there is an accident, who is responsible?
Right. So liable simply means legally responsible. Responsible is more general, but you say liable when you're talking about the law, when you're talking about legal responsibility for the cost of something. So if two people get into a car accident, one of the things that need to be figured out is who's at fault and who needs to pay for the damages. The person who needs to pay for the damages is the one who is liable.
Okay, so he's mentioning some possibilities here. Who could be liable? Could it be the car owner, the manufacturer, the software designer, or the AI itself? So yeah, it could be any of these people. Is it the owner of the car? Is that person responsible for the accident? Is that person liable? Could it be the manufacturer of the car? Could you blame Toyota or Mitsubishi or Benz or whoever? Could you blame the manufacturer or the software designer or even the AI itself? Yeah, you could pull the plug on that AI program and it would never be allowed to exist again. The manufacturer, of course, refers to the company that actually produces something. So I just mentioned a couple examples there. Toyota is a manufacturer of automobiles.
Yes, and we have all of these different components, and it will be difficult to figure out who is at fault if an accident occurs. And he goes on to say, we insurance lawyers are going to have a field day. And here the phrase, have a field day, just means to have a chance to do a lot of something, to have the chance to argue or to criticize somebody in a situation, to have a lot of activity going on. Because perhaps usually insurance lawyers don't have that much work, or the cases that they have to solve, that they have to work on, get done really quickly. But here, since we have so many different components to an accident, you have AI, the software designer, the manufacturer, the car owner, the lawyers are going to have a field day because they're going to be talking about so many different aspects involved in this accident.
Right, so they're going to be very busy. There's going to be all sorts of cases because they're going to have to determine who's liable in the case of an accident. So that is John's opinion here. Let's move on now to Mia, who is a 22-year-old college student. You could also say a university student. And here's what she says. I'm not sure about self-driving cars. Privacy is a big deal for me, and I don't like the idea of a car company knowing everywhere I've been. That really gives me the creeps. That is true. Self-driving cars will be registered. They'll be monitored by people or the government. So she doesn't like the idea that the car company will know every place that she's been to, how she spends her time, where she drove the car to. There will be a record of that everywhere.
Yes, and the idea that her privacy would be infringed upon and that the car company will know where she's going all the time with the car, that idea gives her the creeps. Now, if somebody or something gives you the creeps, it means that those things or those people make you feel nervous and also a little bit frightened because it's creating a strange situation that you've never been in.
Right, so you could use this to describe a certain person. Maybe you know somebody in school who's rather strange, kind of quiet, does weird things. So you could say, ooh, that person really gives me the creeps. I'm not really sure about that person. I'm kind of scared when that person is around me. And here, she doesn't like the idea that the car company will know everywhere she's always been. That does give her the creeps. She does feel a little scared because of that. And yes, indeed, she does also value her privacy. And as I said before, a lot of these self-driving cars will be automatic and you won't need to own your own car. A car will just come and pick you up whenever you want to. And yes, indeed, you'll have to share that car with other people. Who knows what kinds of diseases they've left behind. Okay, that brings us to the end of the first part of our lesson for today. Let's go on now and hear from David and Louisa.
David, 42, small business owner. I'm optimistic about self-driving cars, especially for my online shopping business. The potential for faster delivery times is a game changer, and I wouldn't have to spend money on delivery drivers. It would be a great way for me to increase my profits.
Louisa, 38, ambulance driver. I think about this a lot. If self-driving ambulances could navigate traffic more efficiently, a lot more lives might be saved. Of course, my job would be at risk, which isn't something I'm happy about, but I can certainly see the benefits.
Next up, we have David, who is 42 years old, and he's a small business owner. And David says, I'm optimistic about self-driving cars, especially for my online shopping business. So David is optimistic about self-driving cars, and that simply means that he thinks self-driving cars are a good thing and that they will do good things and help people in the future. That's what optimistic means. It means to have a bright outlook on things. And the opposite of optimistic is, of course, pessimistic, which means that you have a very negative outlook on the future. So David is optimistic about self-driving cars, and he says the potential for faster delivery times is a game changer.
Right, so he thinks that self-driving cars will increase the efficiency of his business. It will be good for his online shopping business because if you have an online shopping business, people order things from you and you have to deliver those things to the people who have bought them. And he says the potential for faster delivery times is a game changer. A game changer is something that changes things dramatically or radically. And yes, indeed, nowadays, maybe delivery is kind of slow. You have to rely on those logistics companies, and they have human drivers and they get stuck in traffic. But if you have these self-driving cars, they'll be more efficient. They'll get through traffic faster, and the delivery times will shorter, and they'll be more efficient, and people will buy more things from your company. And again, it will be a big game changer.
Right. So simply put, a game changer is something that completely changes the way you do something or that completely changes a situation. For instance, I could say that my new sneakers are a game changer because with my old shoes, I had trouble walking and they hurt my feet. But with these new comfortable shoes, they're a game changer because now I can walk really fast and I don't have painful feet anymore.
Yep, the game is not the same. It's totally changed, and everybody has to adjust to that. And he goes on to say, I wouldn't have to spend money on delivery drivers. Yes, indeed, those would be humans driving cars who demand a salary, and they probably want insurance and benefits and things like that, and to be able to have 2 weeks of vacation during the year. And with self-driving cars, you don't need to worry about those things. And he says it would be a great way for me to increase my profits. So yes, from a business point of view, those self-driving cars make sense, at least according to David. Now let's find out what Louisa thinks about self-driving cars. She is 38 years old and she is an ambulance driver.
And Louisa says, I think about this a lot. If self-driving ambulances could navigate traffic more efficiently, a lot more lives might be saved. So Louisa has the same idea or very similar ideas to somebody who is the environmental activist from the last lesson, Emily, because she talks about efficiency. And for Louisa, the important thing is that self-driving ambulances could navigate traffic more efficiently. So when you do something efficiently, it means you do it with less time, less energy, and that's very important for an ambulance because ambulances are there to try to save lives by bringing patients to the hospital, and you want to be able to do that really quickly. And Louisa believes that self-driving ambulances might be more efficient and they could be quicker than ambulances driven by people.
Right, so those self-driving ambulances would have a lot of information available from the internet. Those ambulances would be aware of traffic jams ahead or what the fastest route is, so that would increase efficiency in terms of navigating traffic. It would be more efficient, and as a result, more lives might be saved. Yes, indeed, she does want to have her job. She does want to have paid employment, but she also realizes that it's very important to save lives. So she likes the idea of self-driving cars. She does say, of course, my job would be at risk, which isn't something I'm happy about, but I can certainly see the benefits. So yes, she's happy about these cars being able to save lives, but she also realizes her job would be at risk. And if something is at risk, well, it's possible that this thing might happen, especially if it's a bad thing.
Right, so here we have a similarity between Luisa and Carlos, because Carlos was also worried that his job might be at risk. Carlo was the taxi driver. But whereas Carlos was worried about it and he didn't want it to happen, Luisa was saying, well, maybe it's a good thing, because if people's lives can be saved more easily, then perhaps that's more important than her keeping her job.
Okay, that brings us to the end of the second part of our lesson for today. It's time now to hear about what Grace has to say. She's a 55-year-old real estate agent. Let's listen.
Grace, 55, real estate agent. I'm concerned about the effect they might have on the city's real estate market. If commuting becomes less stressful with self-driving cars, people might be more willing to live farther from city centers. This could really affect the demand for urban living spaces, and I'd likely lose a lot of business.
第三部分我们看到 estate 这个名词指的是土地或房子等财产或是资产。举例来说， The estate has been passed down from parent to child in Shelley's family for generations. Shelley 的家族财产由父母代代传给孩子。或是 By investing in real estate, Patrick made a fortune. 透过投资房地产 Patrick 赚了一大笔钱。接着介绍 commute， 它是动词，有通勤、上下班、往返的意思。例如 Dan commutes 40 kilometers to work every day. Dan 每天都要通勤40公里去工作。最后看到名词 demand， 意思是需求量或是要求。我们可以说The world's demand for oil seems to be growing. 全球对石油的需求似乎不断成长。再看一个例子 The factory increased production to meet the growth in demand. 这间工厂增加产量以满足需求增长。
So Grace is 55 and she's a real estate agent. Now, real estate agent refers to a person who helps people buy and sell property. Real estate agents can also help people rent properties. They can help house owners rent their houses, and they can also help people who are looking to rent a house or an apartment find that house or apartment that's just right for them. To break down the phrase real estate agent, first we have the word agent. An agent is somebody or a company that represents another person or company, especially in a business. So you can have a real estate agent. You can also have a travel agent. A travel agent is somebody who helps people book tickets for airlines, for hotels. So that means that the agent works with businesses like hotels and airlines. But here we're talking about a real estate agent. As for the word estate, now estate itself can refer to someone's property, and that property can include houses and boats and cars and even money. So all of the property of somebody is that person's estate. But when you talk about real estate, then you're referring only to houses or land that belong to somebody. So real estate is the property in the form of land or housing that belong to a person.
And she says, I'm concerned about the effect they might have on the city's real estate market. She's a real estate agent, so she's concerned how this will affect her job. If commuting becomes less stressful with self-driving cars, people might be more willing to live farther from city centers. Yeah, it can be quite stressful to drive yourself to work every day, especially in a city as big as Taipei or Taichung. You can get stuck in traffic accidents or traffic jams, and it can be very stressful. And that's all about commuting, going from home to your office or to school, going back and forth between those different places. And yeah, it would be less stressful if the car drove itself. You could sit back and play on your phone, check your stock market prices and stuff like that, and let the car do the driving. You don't have to honk the horn at people trying to cut you off. And so, therefore, you might be more willing to live farther from the city center, and that could really affect the real estate market. And she goes on to say this could really affect the demand for urban living spaces, and I'd likely lose a lot of business. So she probably specializes in selling properties in the city center, but if everybody wants to live in the suburbs, then she could lose a lot of business. It could affect the demand for urban living spaces. Demand just refers to how much something is wanted or desired by people. Of course, in economics, we have the law of supply and demand. And yes, if demand goes down, then prices will go down as well, and she won't be able to make a decent living being a real estate agent. You'll have to adjust things a little bit. Okay, that brings us to the end of our explanation for today. Let's listen now to Hanny.
各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny。 我们来看今天的文法重点。课文第二部分我们看到 F 选项是一位小企业主 David 所提出的看法。他对自驾车保持乐观态度，特别是对他的网购生意。他就说I wouldn't have to spend money on delivery drivers. 好，那这边我们来复习一下动词 spend 的用法。Spend 表示花费，它通常是以人为主词，用来表达花费时间啊、金钱、精力等等。那句型就会是 somebody spend 加上时间、金钱或精力，加上 on 加名词，或者是把 on 加名词这部分把它换成动名词也可以。举例来说 I try not to spend too much time and energy on social media. 我尽量不花太多时间精力在社群媒体上。好，那现在如果我们要用事物当主词，要表达某事物花了某人多少金钱或是时间，这时候分别会用到 cost 和 take 来表达。我们先来看到动词 cost， 它是指价钱为什么什么，花费了多少金钱，那必须以事物当主词。常用的句型就是 something cost somebody 金额，或者是 something cost 加金额，这就是表达某物花了多少钱，花了某人多少钱。举例来说 The dress costs $800， 那件洋装要价$800。好，那至于我们要表达某事物花了某人多少时间精力，则常常用到动词 take 表达。那么 take 就可以表达花费啊、需要，像花费时间、精力等等。常见的句型就是 something take 加上 time 或是 effort 时间或精力，或者是你也可以用 it takes 时间或精力加上不定词 to be。举例来说 Good work takes time， 好的作品需要时间。 It takes a lot of time and effort to master a foreign language。 要精通外国语言需要花费很多的时间精力。好，我们接着看到课文第三部分 H 选项呢，是一位房地产经纪人提出的看法。那他最后写到说I'd likely lose a lot of business， 我可能会失去很多生意。这边我们来整理一下 likely 的词性以及常见的句型。首先它在课文里面是当副词，表示可能的，像如果我们说 They will likely get married in the near future， 就是表达他们可能在不久的将来步入婚姻。 那另外 likely 也可以当形容词去形容可能的，去表示几率很高。它的前面可以加上 more、less 或是 very 等等来修饰可能的程度。那常用的句型有2种，第一种你可以用 It is likely 加 that 子句，其中的 that 可以省略不用。例如 It is highly likely that Ross will win the match. Ross 非常有可能赢得比赛。而第二个句型是主词 be likely to 加上原形动词，所以像我们刚刚的例句也可以说 Ross is highly likely to win the match. 好，那么以上就是今天重点整理，我们来回顾今天的单字吧。
Insurance. The insurance company provided the money for our car repair, so we didn't have to pay for it ourselves. Manufacturer. The manufacturer has opened a new factory in Vietnam. Estate. Patty wants to get a job in real estate to help people find their dream homes. Agent. The travel agent helped the family to find their perfect vacation spot. Commute. It takes Jack about half an hour to commute to work each morning. Demand. The demand for student housing in this city is greater than the supply.
Discussion starter starts now.
Here's our discussion starter for today. Do you think self-driving cars would make the roads safer?
I think self-driving cars would make the roads safer because it would leave less room for human error. You won't have a lot of drunk drivers and you won't have road rage because a lot of times the accidents happen because people have had alcohol or because they are angry. They may have had a fight and now they're taking it out on the road.
Well, I think we're better off without self-driving cars because they probably would never work in Taiwan because half the vehicles on the roads are scooters, and I have not heard of self-driving scooters. It just won't work in Taiwan. Forget it. Well, that brings us to the end of another edition of our program, and please make sure you join us again next time. From all of us here, I am Roger.
I'm Helen.
See you next time.